What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. After Sound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, I wanted to talk about land and what we can expect from Phase 1.5 versus Phase 2 in terms of overall strategy, or I guess specifically when it comes to resources, the strategy around those. Now, I think the strategy could be very different, and again, we don't have the white paper for land Phase 2, and 1.5 is not even implemented yet, and there's probably going to be some more changes as we go along and get closer to the launch date, which should hopefully be sometime next month, June of 2023. But the main thing that we know of so far is that land 1.5, there will be 3 options in which you can have your workers work towards. That is the research tokens for the Secret of Praetoria, SPS, as well as grain. And grain is required for all monsters in order to farm and to feed them and give them sustenance. Now, when we get to the larger, or well, not the larger, but I guess the larger vision for land, but Phase 2 and beyond, we know that each of these different land types is going to give a different resource. And we don't quite know yet, but there's some hints. We've seen some previews, but I'm not going to get into speculating all of that. I'm just going to say that we know that hills, lakes, plains, deserts, canyons, all these are going to give something very different in terms of the resources that they provide. Now, will they still offer you the chance to get grain? We don't know. But if they don't, then you'll be forced to work towards getting and working the land for whatever resource it is, right? Maybe with lakes, it's something that, I don't know, probably has to do with water or resources from, under the water. Hills, that could be food, right? Deserts, okay, again, I don't want to get into all of it. My point with this, and I'm going to give a shout out to Virus because he was reminding folks in the live stream earlier today that made me think about it and go down the rabbit hole, is the fact that in Phase 1, 1.5, there will be no concept of storage, whereas we know that storage is, as of now, being planned for the future. Again, it's still considered speculation. The team has talked about it and wanted to have some kind of storage in place, but again, that could be dropped or that could be taken to the next level. So I'm going to operate, at least for myself, on the basis that, well, we haven't heard anything against or to the contrary of storage being, something that will no longer be the case. So I'm going to assume that some kind of storage and of course some kind of transportation cost and things like that. We have a preview of transportation costs in 1.5, but storage and transportation are probably going to play much more in land Phase 2, which is kind of where the team is hoping to get to, right? That's the broader, at least kind of core vision of what they have for land, and then they'll continue building from there. 1.5 is really just a obviously half step for us to get some kind of working on land and having monsters and DEC being put to use before that full concept for land, or at least the full basic concept with land 2.0 is actually up and running. So when it comes to 1.5, part of the strategy could be you can go and buy a plot right now for $48. And I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. I'm just saying you could buy a plot right now for $48. Hills, lake, there's plains here, deserts. You could buy any of these and you know what you're going to be able to make for the next, we'll call it 3 to 6 months after land Phase 1.5 is out, right? Hopefully that's in June. I know the team is trying to get Phase 2 out by the end of the year. We'll see if that happens, but that would give you 3 to 6 months on being able to just farm grain, for example, right? Or farm SPS. You could go and do literally whatever you wanted to. But if you started to get plots from different regions and plots with different types, right? Different resources. As soon as the switch is flipped, right, and that could be late 2023, it could be sometime in 2024, but we know that switch is going to get flipped at some point if the team continues to develop land and get to 2.0. Once that switch is flipped, well, then all of a sudden, you will have to worry about A, where your land is, and B, what resources you're getting, and then C, storage, right? Because let's say you have 3 different types of land. They're all in the, actually, even if you have 3 different types of land, but they're all in the same region, let's say you need to have like a storage building that needs to be upgraded to increase capacity, but can only store one type of resource. Well, now you can have like one of your land plots build a building of storage, but if you only have 3 plots, and if you have 3 plots and 3 different types, then all of your buildings are going to be storage. Again, this is pure speculation, right? Because we don't really know. We don't really know all the details, but I'm just trying to take this to not the extreme, but one of the more extreme sides of the spectrum where that would be, your strategy would completely change. So is there an opportunity with phase 1.5 to go in and just buy cheap land all over the place? And when I say cheap, I mean $48 is the lowest that we've seen in a while. Again, I'm not saying that's a good or bad price from an investment standpoint, but you could just go for the cheapest, right? In relative terms, cheapest land, no matter where it is. Farm your grain or farm your SPS. There will not need to be any transportation or supplying of that resource, storage of those resources. So in a sense, you could go in and just get super cheap plots and then change things around later, swap land, sell it, whatever the case is, or focus in more. But ultimately, that's going to be something that's tough because land plots aren't necessarily, we don't know what's going to happen to the price of land over time. I think everybody expects it to go up, but markets are going to market. So this is kind of how, with all that said, this is kind of how I'm looking at land. And I'm not even playing it out this way. If I had extra capital, I probably would focus on it this way, but I'm not saying that this is the only strategy. In fact, I'm curious to get your guys' strategy if you're willing to share. But part of me looks at this and says, okay, if I had extra capital or if I'm able to acquire extra capital over the next couple of weeks, something that I would look to do is probably get a bunch of plots that are just cheap and then start farming grain or start farming SPS, because I know for sure that those would be coming to me. It doesn't matter what region, what tract these plots are in. I would be able to sell the grain. I would be able to sell the SPS, well, not sell it if I don't want to sell the SPS, but I'd be able to take the SPS as is. I'd be able to sell the grain for DEC and then use the DEC anywhere else in the ecosystem that I wanted, right? I wouldn't have to worry about transportation costs of sending grain from one place to another if I only go for grain, for example, right? And here's the thing, if I only go for grain, that makes it super easy. I don't know what the returns will be like for grain. And obviously so much of that depends on how many people are farming grain, how much production points are you going to put on your land, what kind of bonuses can you get? But ultimately, if you can get something out of your land, you can immediately sell that grain for DEC, which can then be used anywhere else in the ecosystem. But keep in mind, I only really expect that to be the case for the short term between 1.5 and 2.0. So there'll have to be a point in time in which I look at this and say, okay, I don't want to deal with having land all over the place now. So sometime between 1.5 and 2, I may start to swap land or sell and buy, right? Something that's more in line with where I'm at. Now, all of these are going to be transactions. They're going to create whatever it is that you'll need, a headache or excitement if you like trading. It could be an opportunity if land goes up in value. It could be a failure, right? Because I could buy land for $48 right now, but if somebody's only willing to pay $30 for it later and I don't want to use it, and for example, let's say Hills, right? So let's say with Hills, I'm no longer able to create food, right? Maybe that's only for planes or something. With Hills, I create some other kind of resource, but I still need to feed the monsters on there. Well, then all of a sudden I need to then focus on buying grain, managing all these individual plots across the base. And ultimately, it just becomes this sprawling network that could be fun to manage if you're looking for something more involved, but I don't need a full-time job with land. I would rather have a lot of this automated. So I look at someone like Darkest Night who's focusing very much on collecting different plots of land inside the same area. And I will probably, ultimately want to do something similar. So really what I'm weighing here, and this is what the point of the video is looking at the strategies or the difference in strategies between phase 1.5 and phase 2. Is it worthwhile? And again, this is not financial advice. This is just game advice. Part of me looks at this and says, based on how long 1.5 may last for, meaning if phase 2 gets delayed, as we've seen, a lot of delays with land, the team is taking their time and they want to get it right. And that's totally cool. There's no shade being thrown here, but it's just like, if it is going to take the full 6 months or maybe even longer, well, then there's a lot of opportunity there, potentially at decent prices for the cheapest plots of land to just get in and be a part of the ecosystem no matter where it is. And then using those next 6 months to start consolidating, to take opportunities. Let's say this certain plot of land goes up in value or price. Maybe you let that one go. And then maybe you focus in on getting something closer. So you could either do everything now, which is what the team is recommending, or there is an opportunity, in my opinion, to just take the cheapest and then play the flipping game. Again, I'm not good at that. It's just appealing to me right now. And I'm looking at the differences between 1.5 and 2. But I'm happy with my 3 plots of land. They're all sitting right next to one another. There's 2 different types. I have 2 forests and a jungle, and that's where I'm at right now. And I don't know if anybody else in 51.3, Area 51.3 is going to sell, but if they do, then I may look there first and foremost. But I got to admit, looking at plots of land, even just at $50 a pop for common hills or common lakes, it does seem like an interesting opportunity. So that's all I'm going to leave it at. I'm not saying that you should buy it. This is not financial advice. This is just game advice. And if I want to grow in land and I have limited funds, I may choose to, not necessarily focus on 51.3 only, but jump in and grab a couple in like 59 or 119, whatever the case is, right? So that's all I have for you guys in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How are you planning to play the difference between 1.5 and 2.0? What are the strategies that you're employing? And maybe even more importantly, what are the assumptions that you're making about land phase 2, since we don't actually know all the details yet? That's helping to drive some of your decisions. So I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments, and we can continue our speculation and discussion there. That's all I have. Have an amazing rest of your day. We'll catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.